Hi all and welcome back. This is Darren from MRT here. This is interview number 3 in the Craftsman Courtyard online interview series. This week I'm going to be interviewing Brett Wiley from HO Scale Customs. He needs very little introduction, so without further ado, let's get started. Alright, welcome aboard young Brett Wiley from HO Scale Customs. Thanks for taking the time out for talking to me. Obviously we've floated this idea for a little bit of a catch up for a while, but our busy lives and schedules have got in the way, you could say.
A little bit.
That's right. As you may know, the concept grew with Jeff Grove and myself on the back of the Craftsman's Courtyard Online, that Facebook page that he's got up and running, and on the backside of world events, which I don't really want to go into too much in this show. I think there's enough in everyone's media to worrying about this. So, and obviously, unfortunately, the cancellation of the Timonium show. So, first of all, obviously, this is all about HO Scale Customs. That's the way I'm looking at it, because obviously you were going to be one of the vendors or participants at the Timonium show. So tell me if I'm wrong. You can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, all at HO Scale Customs.
Yeah, and at hoscalecustoms.com. I mean, we're everywhere. So, and then obviously our podcast is available on every single place you can look for a podcast too.
I'm definitely we're going to go through that definitely in a sec.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, as I said, I'll put this in the description of the YouTube here, all the ways we can make contact with HO Scale Customs, yourself and your dad. So, definitely on the website. It's a cool little website. We're going to get to that definitely in a sec. So, as you're saying, you're primarily a podcaster. So I suppose this interview is going to be around, I'm going to call it the model of the podcast maker, so to speak. So it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag of what we're going to talk about. It's not just going to be what you talk about on your podcast. I'm going to mix it up a little bit and hopefully add some humour to it. So see how we go.
I'm on board.
Jeff Grove, sort of, when I spoke to him, he didn't understand some of my Australianisms. So please ask questions if you don't understand either, because we can be an odd bunch with some of the language we use at times. So
that's fine. I'm looking
language. So,
maybe I'll pick up a few little fun things to say to my friends. Then they won't have any idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So, all right. So as you said, podcast. I'm looking at Apple Podcast, Podbean, on your website, Google Play. This is how else can we access your awesome podcast?
I mean, it's on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, you name it, Stitcher. There's a million podcast apps, and I've been trying to make sure to stay on top of being on all of them. So you should be able to find us pretty much everywhere that you listen to podcasts.
Sweet. So my journey with your podcast is I've a reasonable commute to work. I just started Googling podcasts. First of all, I came across Model Rail Radio, and obviously that's some questioning later on, because you've got a whole section on that, and I'm interested in your thoughts on other podcasts, so to speak. And then I came across yours and just fell in love with it effectively. I've pretty well listened to, I think, every episode now. So it's good fun podcast. You and your dad, the way you interact, I think it's hilarious. The banter and getting stuck into each other. If there's an Australianism for you, getting stuck into each other. So I really enjoy the weekly uploads to see what banter you're going to come up with, because it's very entertaining, and I think the whole Craftsman group that you've got set up there is kind of awesome. You could say they're like your super fans. The Overtime Facebook post or page, I should say, is I've met, obviously I've now done a live stream with Dan Pugach. Who would have thought 6 months ago I'd be doing a live stream with someone that's the other side of the world, so to speak. So I've really enjoyed that side of things. So all right, so now we're going to probe nice and deep into this. So
let's go
for it. As I said, when I interviewed Jeff Grove last week, we had a good old laugh about, I asked him what other people does he suggest that I catch up with, and he said you need to get in contact with the Wiley boys. And then we had a bit of a giggle at that you being on the other side of the microphone. So because obviously you make people sweat, I can tell, which is kind of fun. So All
Oh,
right. So,
it's my favorite.
so we'll start at the beginning. Tell us about your background in modeling.
Yeah, so we haven't really talked about that much either on our show. So my dad and I, when I was like 13 years old, we had a small layout in like our spare room of the house, and it was small 4x8 layout. It started out as HO scale and went over to N scale when I realized I could do way more with N scale on that size of a sheet of plywood. And I worked at that for a little while, and then it's the age old thing, cars and girls and sports get involved in a teenager's life, and that stops being a priority. But you know, I never really lost that passion to create, even though I wasn't building models. I was working on other stuff, and once I had kids and a house of my own and a basement, I realized, well, there's this beautiful basement that needs to be filled with a whole bunch of half-finished projects. So I decided to call my dad up and ask him if he wanted to do a train layout in the basement. So we started with the typical plastic DPM and Walder's kits, and slowly we evolved into doing some kit bashes and doing some Bar Mills kits and getting our feet wet with wood craftsman kits again, because my dad had done them 25 years or 30 years prior, and he knew that he wanted to get back into that. So he introduced me to that world, and man, I don't think we've looked back since doing anything else.
No, I can definitely tell you haven't look back, because the work that you're creating, you and your dad, is phenomenal, and I'm looking on with inspiration and awe, I suppose, and that new one your dad put up on Facebook a few days ago.
Yeah.
That kit bash he's going to do with CCK and also a Foscale model. So
that's going to be incredible.
At this point in my career, I've only built 3 or 4 of these kits. I wouldn't be even game to look at doing something like that, because I'd ruin it. That's $400 or $500 for the kits, but I want to give it a go at some stage, definitely. So
happy mistakes.
Yes, that's right. All right, I suppose I'm kind of interested, because this is a very new, for Australians, it's a very new concept of, obviously the US of A has a very rich history that is highly celebrated, I suppose you could say. So where I'm going with this is, you've talked about it on your podcasts on several occasions about you were doing quite full on, what would you call it, Civil War reenacting.
Yeah, we did quite a bit of that.
I suppose what I'm interested in, so you've got two high-end hobbies, I would think. How have you brought what you've learnt from your reenacting across into your modelling, if there's anything at all, I suppose, is the next question.
No, I think there is. And I think a lot of what my dad and I did with reenacting lends itself to what we carried over into model railroading. And it's kind of interesting that you brought that up, because we've talked about that before. So when my dad and I this is very much like model railroading when you transition into the craftsman side. So when my dad and I first started reenacting, we realized there's a lot of there's millions of reenactors, or there were before. That's a whole other thing. Before there was a downturn after the 150th anniversary, but that doesn't need to get into that. But we realized there's like what you call like a mainstream reenacting, and then more of it's called hardcore reenacting, where you get really picky about what you're wearing and what you're sleeping in and how you carry your packs and everything, all the way down to the tiniest little details. When you're doing mainstream reenacting, you have coolers in your tents, and you bring the whole kitchen sink with you, and it's very much different. So we transitioned from when we first started doing mainstream, realizing it wasn't the most authentic way to do it, and we brought ourselves into this group that just did really hardcore campaigns, like you were on the march for weeks and months upon months, and we really learned how to do it the authentic and extraordinarily detailed way. Now, I carry that over into what we did with model railroading, because my dad and I are very much the same, very like-minded, where we started out doing plastic kits, and then we realized, hey, you can get a lot more detail and a lot more packed into a tinier small Craftsman kit. So we transitioned kind of into like the not so mainstream world of model railroading too. So it's kind of how it all meshes together.
It's kind of interesting that you say that you talk mainstream and non-mainstream. I don't know why Craftsman kits isn't more mainstream. Obviously people like yourself and the Facebook pages and all that are definitely bringing up the profile of the Craftsman world, I think, definitely. So, and I'm hoping the guys and girls who manufacture these kits the other end are going to reap the rewards, and so will we. If they get more income, they might put more products out there for us to build, I suppose. So it's quite an interesting concept that the whole Craftsman kit isn't in that mainstream thought, because it's just another.
I think, and if you talk to the guys, a lot of the manufacturers, Jeff, Kenny, Doug, any of the guys, you quickly learn that. I think from what we've been doing, and not just us, I'm not taking credit. I don't mean we as in my dad and I. I think when you look at the people online that make their own Facebook pages for the art that they're making, and they're not afraid to share it. You guys, you got hundreds of modelers that just share online. And I think in the last 5 years, we as Craftsman modelers have created this community. And what I've noticed, even just since having this podcast for the last 2.5 years, we get a lot of people that come to us and ask, hey, I really want to start doing Craftsman kits. Where do I start? So I think it's a slow transition. Not everyone's going to jump headfirst into it, but I think you're seeing it with the
Sure.
advent of these Facebook groups and all this openness that we have in this community.
Yeah.
We draw people in.
Well, I can blame you and your dad for my journey into Craftsman kits. So my very first kit was a Railway Kits by Jimmy, which is the one I won off by a photo I think I put up on your Facebook page a year ago now. So,
Yep.
And that was the Denim feeds, and that was the very first little kit that I built. So I haven't built many more since. I've only done a handful, but I'm definitely enjoying learning the techniques, because I think it's important. Just you can bring these techniques over to any part of your modelling. I think it's not just the structure. I'm doing a rather large boat build right now. It's nearly 2 feet long. That it's the vein of my existence right now, and I'm trying to get it finished. But I've used some of those techniques that I've learnt from yourselves, from the Jason Jensens of the world, the Dave Cruiswicks, and everyone in between. That I've sort of giving to that boat, and it's coming up really nicely. I don't think it's going to be a great video series if I ever do it. It's just one of those things. Like I tried videotaping rigging, how I did the rigging on it, and it's not very enthralling. So I'm thinking I'm just going to ditch that idea. Me getting frustrated and just about throw this thing across the room. But it's been a fun build other than that. So
everyone's got a project like that.
Yeah, that's right. It was meant to, the video on that was meant to come out about 2 months ago, but it's taken me that long to build. But anyway, so we digress.
That's all right. My dad, there's a very similar story you'll hear on this week's podcast from my dad having a very similar experience with a model he's putting on the shelf for a little bit, just because he's like, I can't look at this anymore. Sometimes you just gotta shelf it for a couple months and come back to it.
Move on to it. Yeah, sure. So what's new on your layout?
Well, so for anyone that is following, your channel that's not familiar with what my dad and I are working on currently, I got a lot of work to do this weekend on the terminal build from FOS scale models, or FOS scale models. So that's actually going to go on the layout this weekend. I'm going to do all the scenery for it. We're going to be pented in the house, so might as well get a bunch of work done, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But so that one's going to be up. I'll put some pictures up of it later, probably tomorrow night, Saturday night. Well, whatever time it'll be on your side. But there'll be pictures of it up here in the next 48 hours, actually, with scenery around it, not just on a white backdrop.
So this is the bus. This is the bus terminal, is it?
That's the middle building of the kit.
I've got that up on the screen now. I'm just scrolling through your photos. So
Yeah, so that building you're looking at is the middle, kind of the keystone of all the other buildings that go around it. And there's like
Right.
5 other buildings
Oh
that
wow.
are part of that complex.
I love that. I'm just looking at that sign, the picture of the sign on the top of it. That's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those laser cut signs are always a lot of fun to make.
So who did you get? Is that where do you get the lettering from for that?
Everything you're looking at came in the kit.
Oh wow. Okay.
But I will give you guys one hack. Uh, I don't know. You have craft stores? I'm sure you have craft stores.
We
That was a
do.
stupid
Yeah.
question. But like ours is Michael's. I'm not sure what yours is called.
Yeah.
But when you go to the Michael's craft store, any store that has scrapbooking aisles,
Right.
you can go to the store in the scrapbooking aisle and find laser cut wood letters. And they make some that are pretty much to scale that you can use for signs like that. I actually made a building called Columbo. I did a scratch build or like a scratch bash, kit bash thing called Columbo Breads, and I used craft scrapbooking letters for it.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So, yeah, the scrapbooking aisle at your local craft store is full of stuff
Okay.
you can reuse for model railroading.
We don't have many in Australia, but we have one big sort of retailer called
Yeah.
Spotlight, which has sort of got all that type of stuff. So I quite regularly go in there and have a look. Being
You
that I'm
have to.
about the only male in there, but anyway, predominantly in Australia, it's the ladies go in there because it's got
Yeah.
all sorts in there. But
But that just means there's more to pick from for your
Correct.
modeling. Then there's
Exactly.
all the hobby people aren't in
that's
there
right.
picking up all the letters.
They haven't found it yet. That's exactly right. And we won't tell them. We won't say that too loudly. Not over here. So. No, that's that bus turn was lovely. So, just obviously, I've got the main sort of frontage of it, I suppose. And
Yep.
how did you come up with that colouring? Because obviously, I've heard a lot of dialogue or discussions between using sort of a brighter colour. It's like a yellowy orange colour that you've got.
Yeah.
There.
Actually, well, I have it covered up with my banner behind me right now, but all my paints are behind that banner. I was gonna pull it out. That's just a straight up craft paint. I didn't mix that one or anything. I think it's from Folk Art brand,
Sure.
acrylic craft.
Yeah.
But it's just called yellow ochre.
Lovely.
That's all I used. And I just went off the box. I'm trying to do this one. I'm trying to do this one to the T from the kit, from the way it looks on the box. I don't normally. I'm sure you've listened to our show quite a bit. I'm not normally one to build it to the kit the way it looks on the picture.
Sure.
But for once, I'm going to actually do it on this build. So.
Yeah. No, the stony stucco.
Yeah.
On the side there. How did you do that?
Yeah. So that's
I love that texture.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy technique actually. We should do a video on that. But it's called it's a product called Durham's Water Putty. I don't know if you guys have that available.
I heard you speak of that. Yeah.
But it's basically just a model, like a molding compound, and you get a little bit. You got to play with the texture to get it just right. And I just hit it with a coarse brush, dab it on, do a couple layers like that, and it just makes that rough look.
Yeah, it does. That makes it pop. That's for sure. Then add a bit of weathering to that. What you've done, and that's come up very, very nicely.
That's just some ink wash.
Yeah. No, that's nice. All right. So you're building a 360 degree layout.
Correct.
The view of it is 360 degrees, which is, I've never heard of this concept before in my modelling. It's obviously in this space, I think, quite unique and got its own issues, I would think, because you got to think when you're building.
Oh yeah,
stuff,
plenty.
Normally, when you build something, you might only do the hyper detail on the front and two sides, maybe, and leave the back alone. But now you're doing all four sides.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come up with that concept of a 360 degree layout? What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, so initially our layout was up against the wall, and it started out as a 4x8, the most basic shape you could start with, or size, and I'm not sure if you could find any. If you have any pictures of it, we're gonna have them way back in the beginning on our page, on our website. But basically, when my dad and I were working on it, we realized we only have so much space in the basement, so we might as well pull this layout out from the wall and get as much detail crammed into a tiny layout that we can. Just because I don't have a huge house, my basement's limited in size because it's the way the basement's oriented. So we made it 17 feet long and 6 feet deep. When we pulled it out from the wall, we added a bunch of lumber, expanded it, and ended up, turning it into a 360-degree layout because we were limited on space. So we knew that if we provided all 4 sides to be looked at, it would force us to add more detail into a smaller space. So we're just using the most out of our square inches that we have.
So I asked was the perspective issues you might have had with doing a 360-degree layout effectively. So with traditional ways where you're only looking at it sort of between 90 and 180 degrees maybe. So
it's actually tough because we have to use the center of the layout as the backdrop to the front and the back. So our tall buildings, we're going to run down the center and use that as a block to almost create a backdrop behind the shorter buildings up front. So we're limited because we can't use a backdrop. We can't really mask stuff like you said. We have to think about all 4 sides of the building. Yeah, you're right. It's a lot of challenges that are presented when we put a building. We make a building for a specific area now because we have a lot of buildings to put down. I'm sure you've seen them. We've put plenty of them up online. Now they all got to find a home on our layout. But what the problem is they look great until you set them down in a spot that you think's meant to be the home for that building, and then you realize, well, it looks good from this angle, but then when you walk around the backside of the layout, it looks awful. Now you got to walk every time you do anything. You got to walk the whole way around and look at it from all 4 sides to make sure it looks okay. Sure. And there's an advantage with it because we have 2 of us working on the same layout. Yeah. So that's not as common as a lot of people have their own home layout by themselves. So my dad and I act as a good check and balance for each other because we're constantly critiquing each other's work in a good way and making sure everything looks fine.
All right, that's good.
But it is fun though because it forces you to be on your game with every little thing that you do, having it being able to be viewed from all angles. So
it's sort of, as you say, it's doubling the size of your layout with the per square footage that you've got effectively, isn't it? Because some people might have a massive basement empire, but as I said, you're only viewing it from 180 degrees at best, and you're doing 360, so you're doubling the size effectively, aren't you? So you could look at it that way, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. And the one thing that's cool about it is so usually if you have a large layout, you're able to spread some things out. You're able to play with perspective, and you can have some gaps where you're, putting a lot more scenery down, and you can spread some buildings and stuff out. But we're taking the opposite approach. We're trying to take what little space we have and cram as much stuff in to one area as we can. We want it to be just packed full of detail. So
sure.
We didn't make it easy for ourselves. I know that.
All right. So what we might have a look at quickly now is I've got it up on your website here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not your build, or sorry, your competition, but the home quarantine scratch build contest. I think is it Dan Banks that's running that?
Yes. Yep, Dan's running that.
So what can you sort of talk about that? Obviously I've got it up on the site here, so it's what are the rules that sit in behind it?
Yeah, so the rules are they're on our website, hoscalecustoms.com. It's one of the top stories on there now for the home quarantine scratch build. But you have a month, I think was from last week, and the rules are like 20 scale feet. I forget the full dimensions. You'll have to check the website out, but you have to build it with, it can't be a kit. You have to build it with scratch materials. So a lot of guys are actually using leftover materials. So everyone's got that bin of stuff they don't know what to do with because you are hoarders and you save it all. We all are a little bit, but we're trying to see who can create the best scratch build, small scratch build structure. You can't go big with it.
Yeah. So basically, what are we looking at? The structure can be 20 by 40 scale feet. For example, 1/4 inch to the foot, effectively, which is, well, you've got millimeters as well for us metric
Yes,
people of the world.
for the rest of the world.
That's right. Which is 254 millimeters by 127 millimeters.
Exactly.
So,
but yeah, it'll be fun. I know there's been a lot of guys that jumped on it early and did a lot of cool builds. I'm actually going to work on mine this weekend.
Sure.
Because even though we are being hit with the current issues over here in the U.S.,
yeah.
I've been working, so I have to do mine this weekend. I'm gonna bang my little scratch build out this weekend, and it's actually fun because I'm not the one organizing it this time.
No.
I'm glad Dan took the ball with that one and ran. So,
yeah, so it's a good idea. So
yeah,
unfortunately, I won't be getting anything up for that, but wait for
that's all right.
Wait for the next competition. So
just save it for the next time. And then the one thing we are doing, I upped the ante when I told Dan that I was grateful that he was running the contest. I did up the ante for it, and I'm going to make a fun little award plaque for everyone. Whoever's the winner and gets the most votes, we'll make a funny plaque for it.
Yeah. Can you just make sure it's not an emoji of a germ?
It will not.
That looks like a germ.
It won't be it won't be a germ, I promise.
Because that's all I'm seeing right now. Even on my desktop at work, it's just
these germ emojis.
Oh, it's terrible. But anyway, that's enough about
I
that.
promise it won't be a germ emoji.
We promised we wouldn't talk about that. So,
anyways, moving on.
Move it on. Let's move on.
It has to do with the build.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So we're going to go over to your website now, which we were on before, however. So it's very easy to get yourself around this website. So you've done a really good job with it. So
thank you.
I've got some of my ideas from my website from this to tell you the truth. So just the way you set things up is really really good. So well done with that, young Brett. So I'm assuming you've done that, not Dad. So
yeah, that was me. My dad, he'll try to claim credit, but it was me.
But he was talking into the microphone the wrong way for quite a while. So
I know. Well, he'll learn one of these days.
Fathers, hey?
What are you gonna do with them?
That's right. Okay. So I'm going to go to your supporters page. So which is something I'm going to do on mine. So in short, you and your dad spend a substantial amount of time putting up content. Free content to a certain degree. You obviously have a patron page, which is if you go into Patreon at HA Scale Customs, and you can become a patron, then you get access to the Overtime, the Overtime Bench Pass Facebook page, I should say.
It's a group,
which is a group that you need to be a patron.
It's a rowdy group too.
It is a rowdy group.
They're a fun bunch.
They are a fantastic bunch. So. We'll get to some of their questions later, but as I said, I'll put up I posed a question, what questions they might want to ask you, because it's normally the other way around. So, so you can make off one-time donations. This is all on your website, which is I'm scrolling down and showing as we record this. So, the one I'm interested in is, and I'm going to get some of this, is we're going to start talking about some of the motivation behind the t-shirts and the stickers and all that. So the first one we're going to look at is the supporter gear, the one I want to talk about, and just the tip. So I want to talk about how each one of these has come about. Yeah,
let's dive into it. So you want to start with that one?
We'll start with that one, and we'll work our way across.
Okay. I noticed that my dad and I frequently use that term in a way that most people outside of this hobby wouldn't understand. For the most part, when my dad and I are talking and we're saying, okay, well, here you got to use this tool to apply this little dab of glue or a little bit of paint, we end up saying just the tip when we're trying to explain it. And there's always a listener every week that sends us a message or laughing about, our usage of the term just the tip. But it's totally out of context. We're just talking about paint or glue, which is why I threw the paintbrush in. But, it's still funny. You can't not hear that phrase and giggle a little bit.
No, you can't. This is the child in all of us, isn't it? So, because if you just heard that on a podcast, that's all you heard, you think it wasn't something about modelling, that's for sure. So
no, totally.
That's hilarious. So, Okay, moving right across. The only BS I need is beer and structures.
Yeah, I mean, we enjoy. We're not shy about telling everyone that we enjoy to have a beverage while we're working. So, sometimes it's a weekend and you just gotta relax and
Let
crack a
loose.
beer and
That's
get
right.
to work.
That's right. I heard a on another podcast. I heard a funny. It was like Lionel Strang on his
Uh huh.
AML one. He said just recently he was at a mate's house before quarantine, and they were having a beer, and he put his beer down and just knocked it over the whole bench. And then,
It's
then
a
he had to
crime.
then he had to go to one of the big stores over there in Canada and grab a whole 50 pack of paper towels for each time he comes around to clean it up. So
That's a
that's
crime there.
yeah, well, that's right. Damaged
That's
models
all
and
right
waste
though.
beer. You don't want to do that.
It just
So
makes for funny stories later.
that's all right. That's all right. Fine scale freak. Obviously, you use that quite a bit in your podcast. How did that concept come about? Or that?
That started on like episode 4 or 5, like really, really early in our podcast, and my dad used it. I think the first time he said something at the end like "See you later, fine scale freaks," and for whatever reason that silly phrase just stuck, and I think it worked for us because we do obsess about small things on our buildings, so we kind of become little freaks about little tiny details. That shirt there, the one glue to bond them all,
Yeah.
is actually I think Dan Pugat, who you had on your show the other week. I think that was his idea, and I
Yeah.
just turned it into a shirt. It was there was a couple people in the YouTube and podcast world that were debating the best types of glue, and we
Oh,
kept
I did see
saying
that. Yeah, I did
we
see
kept
that.
saying there's just one glue. It's all you need. It's
That's
just
right.
wood glue. That's
That's
it.
right. You
And
did a spoof on that, didn't you? And just throwing
uh,
glue bottles around, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, a little colorful, but I
yeah.
had a spoof on it. But that's the story behind that shirt.
Now, Sculpey. Obviously I know the backstory to this, but you got quite
Yeah.
a new patrons. I would think that obviously hopefully they'll listen to when I put this up. So, how did for the uneducated, like I suppose I don't know the whole story. How did Sculpey come about?
So Sculpey came about during a Facebook Live of video that my dad and I do. We try to do live videos a couple times a month on Facebook, and he was what the hell? He was making these birds out of the Sculptamold clay, like the air dry clay,
Yeah.
and they were huge. They were monstrous. They were like pterodactyl sized birds, and the guys were making fun of him because he put it up to the side of he put a little HO scale size figure and a
Yeah.
car beside it, and it would have it was bigger than the person.
Yeah.
So we got a good laugh out of it, and then Dave Cruzwick actually named him
Yeah.
Sculpey. So he became the mascot of the show.
I'll let you in a little piece of information. When I did my Christmas build and I did that snow scene, I was making out of air dry clay little,
Uh-huh.
I thought were scale snowmen, but then I put them against the HO scale men and it was like something like the Michelin man walking down the road. So maybe I don't want to copy your idea there, but we'll let a little bit of, maybe he can
That's
be one.
funny though.
So, all right, just say no to nail holes. That's
Yeah. So there was a
the
debate.
you're talking about. So
Another debate. There's one below it called "I Heart Nail Holes."
Yeah.
So they go together.
sure.
That was just we had some people get on our live shows and podcasts and YouTube videos that were complaining about, they were griping about us using nail holes from a pounce wheel, telling us, you wouldn't see it in real life if it was at scale, from that distance from the road, blah, 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 you wouldn't see nail holes. And so we had half of our audience was split, and half of them loved putting nail holes on builds, and the other half
Yeah.
couldn't stand it because they thought they were out of scale. So we had a little debate and made some shirts with it.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love the latest dialogue that's going on about the childish music that apparently you play before your podcasts.
Oh yeah, that was
Hilarious.
that guy was just on a soapbox that day. He had a bad day. That guy just had a bad day.
Yeah, I love it. I love the what are you listening to right now? And
Yeah.
it's
Well, and I
hilarious.
think actually that episode the next week after that guy complained about the intro music, I think I made like a fake public service announcement, and I said, like, real serious. I was like, guys, well, because of one person, we're never gonna play music on the show again. And I like paused. I was like, nah, screw that. And then I turned it into like this real heavy rock song for an intro then.
Yeah.
So I had to have fun with it.
Yeah, why not? Why not? It's quite interesting, some of the comments that you get when you put your content up. So it's still something I'm
Yeah.
trying to learn to brush it off, so to speak. But
Sometimes you just gotta let it roll off your back. There's
yeah,
you
that's
know,
right.
there's billions of people on the internet, and you can't. We took it hard in the beginning too, and we had to learn quickly that we make content for us, and
Sure.
we make content for people that are we know like us would enjoy it.
That's
So
right.
there's always going to be someone that hates on what you're doing. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
you can't be everything to everyone.
no, you're exactly right there. So, and obviously you've got your HO Scale Customs logo, and you can get the cups and stickers. And so, as I said, I'll put another link to that up here. And if you want to go in and buy and support your channel, as I said, I've got the sticker. I'm going to go on. I think I want to get the hockey puck. I think I'm going to get in contact with Dan and
I
get the hockey puck.
I think I need to get in
Sculpted.
contact with him anyways. So maybe we do a bulk order because there is a minimum quantity. So maybe
Yeah.
I'll put a. I've had a couple requests for it, and I actually I had a bet with someone. I owe him a hockey puck too, an HSCO
Okay.
Customs hockey puck. So maybe we'll get in touch with Dan and see if we can get a bulk order put in for it.
So how are you traveling with all your sports? Like, because hockey is obviously massive
Oh
in your
man,
family.
I'm in withdrawal from
Yeah.
hockey now. Like
Is-
I sat down today and I watched hockey highlight videos because I was just so missing hockey so much.
Yeah.
But
Because all
it'll come back.
our winter sport, what we'd call it over here, which is like our Australian rules football, is obviously being canned, and
Hmm.
rugby, which is closer to your American football, I suppose, than our Australian rules football. But
I think it's more exciting.
yeah,
Honestly, I like watching rugby videos.
yeah,
It's
and they've
I
got no
wish it was more
padding.
mainstream here.
They've got no padding, those blokes as well. They're insane. So, but
Yeah.
if you hear them talk after a rather lengthy career playing the sport,
You can tell.
you can tell they get bashed around a bit. Those lads. So.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about the merchandise, how we can support your channel, which is even better, because I suppose where I'm going with that is, a lot of this, I've never done a podcast, so YouTube is a freer option, I suppose. There's obviously stuff you need, microphones and everything else, but obviously you've got hosting fees and all that to go along with that, so to keep the
Yeah,
content coming out, so
there's some costs involved. We have equipment that fails, and recently I had to buy a little bit of new equipment because it failed.
yeah,
But like anything, there's costs involved, and we have websites and hosting, and
yeah,
um, we just we don't force anyone to
no,
participate in supporting us, and we've said it before, and we continue to say it. If all of our support went away, my dad and I would probably still do the podcast because we just love the community that it
yeah,
brings.
yeah, it's awesome, 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 so... All right. So a recent addition is and I'll bring it up on the website here. Where is it? Is the Bench Time Forum.
Yes, that's a baby
So
of compared to everything else.
yeah. So what was the sort of the motivation or that sits in behind that? It's just another way of adding community to this group, I'm assuming, or
Yeah, we kind of wanted it to become uh, like a third part of our mess that we've created here, a third wheel,
yeah,
we would say.
yeah,
But we obviously there's a killer forum at the Modelers Forum.
yeah,
So that's a huge place, and we didn't want to take any credit from that at all. But there was we just wanted to kind of create another extension of what we do
sure,
and what we enjoy. So we just made a small forum on our website that you guys can join.
yeah, yeah. I'll bring
So
it up
I
on the
will admit I got to do some work on that. It's just it launched and then like everything hit the fan at once. So I got to
yeah,
get back in there, get back in the weeds, and
yeah.
start working on that again.
I wouldn't even know where to start how to do a forum. So, but I could see it'd be a lot of work setting the formatting of that up. I would think so. Just looking at it.
Yeah, but I'll get back in there. I promise. I'll pay attention to it here. I just, you know, things get in the way, and
Only do
yeah,
so much.
right.
So
But it's fun. We got a lot of people in it, and they have fun with it.
yeah, that's cool. All right. I think we touched on it briefly earlier. Now, see if I can find it. All right. So you're one of many podcasts, obviously. So you've got a whole page on your website, which I'm now showing now. So must follow Model Railroad and modelling podcasts. So besides making your own content and trying to keep up with all that, and I'm reading it now. Obviously, you're number one on the list, which is why wouldn't you be? Sorry, I had to shameless plug, which is awesome. So no worries with that, kudos. So the other ones on your list here are Model Rail Radio with Tom Barbalet, is it?
Yep.
I've been on that a few times myself, and being an expat Australian living in San Francisco, that's quite an interesting concept what he comes up with, and he's quite a clever man the way he interacts with his A Modeler's Life, which is what we've spoken about. It's probably my other go-to as well. I will listen to.
Yep. And they're big hockey fans, so we love them for that.
Yeah. My favourite part of Lionel Strang's podcast would have to be probably the Kelly questions.
they're good too. What was the one they did? They did a couple episodes back in. So I like following them really closely when it's playoff time for hockey, and I keep going back to hockey. But a couple years ago they got on the Leafs. They're big Leafs fans, so he was on there. They were doing their hockey bets, like who they were going to see go into the playoffs deeper, and I just had a good time with that. But they're good. They're a great crew. Both of those first two podcasts have monstrous followings as well, so you cannot go wrong following either one of those two.
No, that's right.
And all three of them, ours and those two included, are so unique and different that it's refreshing that they all three share pretty much the same audiences for the most part, and are so different.
That's right. So I haven't heard of these other ones. So on the list you've got Model Rail Hobbyist Podcast. Yeah. You've got the Scotty Mason Show.
Yeah, Scotty Mason kind of was, and we've heard it from other people before, he did a lot of the Craftsman stuff, what we do now. His podcast was huge for quite a number of years.
Sure.
His archives and stuff are still up, and I believe they were doing some stuff recently, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
And the other ones below are also great listens, just for different things. I know the TSG podcast, they do a lot of stuff on photography and I don't know if you've seen what he has, but he's got a lot of different, more media related stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. He's got a YouTube channel as well, doesn't he?
Yes.
TSG? Yep. So definitely get on something, because I'm a bit like you obviously live very close to a forest or a national park or something similar where you go running, where I live very close to a state forest, and I get on my mountain bike and put my podcast on and away I go. So
you just drift off into the wilderness.
That's right. So whilst we're still allowed to do that over here in Australia, because I saw about 5 kangaroos and not one person when I went on a 2-hour ride yesterday.
Awesome.
So it's fantastic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I really enjoy it. So
I just think it's cool you saw kangaroos. I've never seen a kangaroo in the wild.
Well, my dog
we have black bear and deer. That's it.
Well, see, I don't see black bears, so I think I'd rather kangaroo, even though they eat our veggie patch. Well, literally, because we live on a small acreage, 3 acres, sort of about 45 minutes south of Adelaide, which is the capital of South Australia, where I live.
Okay.
So,
we just have black bear. They're pretty timid though. They're for the most part they're just omnivores. They just eat, or herbivores, whatever. They eat plants mostly.
Yeah.
But
our kangaroos, they will, if you corner them, they will go the box on with you. So
they'll
punch and kick you. It's got no.
It'd be a bad day.
No, that's well because they got these big talon things and they can literally disembowel you. But that's another.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, you don't want to. They're nasty creatures.
I'll stick to the deer.
Yeah, stick of the deer. We've got those as well. They're down in the forest, but that's fine. So. All right, so this is a little concept I'm going to trial. I didn't do it with the other two. As I said, I've spoken to Stephen Wiley and Jeff Grove so far, and I've only just come up with this concept on the back of something you put up on Facebook. So I've changed all the questions, but this little segment I'm going to call the Wiley's World of Wisdom.
All right.
After you. So it's just a matter of a few little questions that are going to delve deep into your background. So, well, not really, but so what's your favourite pie condiment?
Pie? What I put on pies?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I'm a purist.
Purist.
I like to have no whipped cream, no nothing on my pies.
Okay. Excellent.
It's a controversial topic in my household.
I know, that's why I brought it up.
I just, I want, if you make a pie, I feel like that love and care to winning that pie should leave the pie as it is.
Right. Okay. I'm like that with my steak, my meat. You don't put anything on it.
You're a purist.
Purist. So that's the next question. Steak or seafood?
Oh, it's tough. I'd have to, if I had to pick one for the rest of my life, couldn't eat the other, it would be steak.
Okay. Good man. Good man. Pizza or Mexican?
Pizza.
Diet or full strength soda?
You gotta go the full test on that one. You gotta go full strength.
Full sugar.
Yep.
Well, the amount of K's you're doing on the runs, I think you can get away with that. So.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, vanilla.
Vanilla.
I'm boring.
Nothing wrong with that.
I don't want anything in my ice cream. I just want vanilla ice cream.
You see, it's got a bit of a theme here because you do talk about food a lot in your podcasts. If you didn't realize,
we do. We're foodies.
Love it. Favorite beer?
Oh man, my favorite beer. Oh man, that's tough. If I had to pick like a good old trusty standby beer forever, it would be Harp Lager.
Okay.
Yeah.
I reckon I had some of that when I was in the US the last time we were over there. So.
Yeah, it's made by Guinness, but it's lager.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So, when you put your questions up, you wrote about an ambulance. I'm going to say, have you ridden in a police car before?
I have not.
Good man. I've ridden in many.
I think there's a reason for that, though, right?
Even last night. There is a reason.
You're a frequent. What would you be? You're a frequent flyer.
Yeah, frequent flyer. Unfortunately, I can't work from home right now. So.
Right.
Full strength or decaf coffee?
Oh, see, that's
a time of day thing. I think.
That's yeah. Like tonight, I'll have a decaf.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I do enjoy just a black coffee. Like I like just the flavor of it. So
Sure.
I can enjoy an evening one. But I think for the most part, if I had to pick one forever, bring on that caffeine.
Caffeine. Yeah. Good man. I drink a lot of coffee, probably too much.
Oh yeah, I'm with you.
Probably not as much as say Jason Jensen.
Oh, he can hold his own, I'm sure, with coffee.
He must go to the toilet a lot. Favorite animal?
Favorite animal as a pet or just an animal? Period.
Animal.
Moose.
Moose.
I like a moose. Yeah.
When we came to the US last time, we only saw one moose, and that was on my to see list, and that was at Yellowstone National Park when we were up there.
They're dangerous, but they're cool.
I didn't really want to see a bison, but we saw a lot of bison.
There's a couple bison farm out near me. They're not too exciting.
No, they're not. They're not. Even though one did attack a car a few months ago.
Dang.
Yeah. What is your most unusual talent?
Unusual talent. That's strange. Now I gotta think. My most unusual talent. I guess that's subjective. I think a lot of people would think my most unusual talent is building these little scale structures. If you're not part of this hobby,
For the non-believers.
Unusual talent, I would believe it would be my ultra running for my distance running.
Okay. What is your most useless model train product or railway product?
Oh, let me bring out my scroll, my list. We've bought them all.
You bought them all?
Unfortunately, we've been hook, line, and sinker on pretty much all those.
Yeah.
Most useless one I think I have is ah,
Well, not
yeah, it's
necessarily what
hard.
you have or what you've seen. You've gone,
Oh,
why would people even want to buy that?
there's a lot of like my dad's gonna argue with me on this one, but I don't believe in brush cleaners.
Yeah,
The little pucks
yeah,
that you use to clean your brush. He loves it.
yeah. He
I
loves it.
just use soap and water.
Yeah, you and me both.
But I think it's useless. I just use a little bit of Dawn dish soap and a little mild detergent and wash
Yeah,
my brushes out.
yeah. I'm with you there. Favorite superhero?
Oh, it's the Hulk.
The
Is he a
Hulk.
superhero? Yeah,
Oh
the
yeah.
Hulk.
In 5 words or less, why?
Big, green, mean machine. How about that?
Nice.
I had to count it as I was doing it on
Beautiful.
my fingers.
All right. This one. See if this how this comes about. I went online and came up with unusual interview type questions, and this is one that came up in every one of them. So bear with me.
Oh, that's all
So
right.
if someone wrote a biography about you, what would the title be?
Oh man. um, it would be the title would be why?
Why?
Why? Why are you doing that?
Well, you could add that to a lot of things. Why modeling? Why
I think the
run
whole
so
title
many?
would be called "Why Are You Doing That?"
Why are you
Like, because
doing
I
that?
think that's what everyone asks me every
Yeah.
time I tell them
Why do you
what
run
I
so
all
many
my
miles?
hobbies
Yeah.
or why I'm building this stuff or why whatever all my weird hobbies. They always ask a million questions. Why?
And this is another one, so we'll see how this goes. How do I rate as an interviewer?
For you as an
Yeah,
interviewer,
I would as an interviewer.
um, I'll give you a I'll give you a scale rating, right? 1 to 5, like a movie,
Yeah,
right? We'll do I'll give you 4 because you muted yourself out of
yeah,
5.
that was pretty good. I would only give myself 3 for that, to be quite honest with you. But anyway, I'll take 5. Thank you. Last but not least, tell me a joke.
Tell you a joke. Oh man, I gotta find what's that like bad dad jokes. What was
Bad
one
dad
I was
jokes.
listening to the other day? Um, oh man, you got me stumped.
I
You got
can
me
edit.
stumped
If you
on
got
this
one, I
one.
can edit this out. So
I'll do a bad dad joke. Bad dad jokes. My girls love these.
yeah, my kids are the same.
Um, Here we go. Today my son asked, "Can I have a bookmark?" And I burst into tears. 11 years old, and he still doesn't know my name is Brian. Wait, what? Oh, I get it. I had to tell myself that. I still didn't get it. He thought his dad's name was Mark.
Yeah,
I'm
well
not one
done.
for jokes on the spot.
No, no, that's why they say do this. All right, so that's the end of the probing questions or the Wiley's World of Wisdom. Anyway, so we'll see how
I loved it.
we'll see how that comes in the coming weeks, and I've got a few other people I've teed some times up with to talk to, so see how we go. All right, so to be quite honest with you, if this was purely an Australian audience, there'd be a hell of a lot different questions. But so I put a post out on your Facebook page late yesterday, so it's poor planning on my part. But so asking your patrons to ask what questions they might want me to ask you. So I'm going to start with it's a similar question from Scott Perry and Frank Varga. How does Brett juggle full-time work, family, podcasting, and modelling?
That is delicate balance, but a lot of the times it's I don't get down here to work on my models until it's 9 o'clock at night, late. Um, spend time with family till their girls are in bed, or we watch a movie or something. So I don't get down here till late, at least for the model building. And a lot of the podcasting is the same way. My dad and I don't do the podcast until late in the evening. We're often recording till 11 or 11:30 at night,
Yeah,
um, just to make sure the families are happy before we go into the basement and record.
yeah,
Um, but everything else just kind of comes with the daily life. It's, work, kids throughout the
Yeah.
evening and daytime, and squeeze in the other stuff when we have a few hours here and there in the evenings.
Yeah. I feel your pain there. I've got 2 young kids as well, and trying to fit all this stuff in there.
Yeah.
My daughter. So I'm in my office right now where I'm recording this, and my workbench is just over my shoulder here, and she's actually drawn up this little sign to keep the family quiet that Model Railroad Techniques is recording live or something. She's got on there. She's 11. So.
Nice. Nice. I'll need one of those signs.
Yeah, well, I'll send you a copy of it. So it's quite funny. I'm actually thinking of taking a photo of it and incorporating it into a video, I think. So that's quite funny.
You should.
All right, another one from Scott Perry. He's saying that obviously you are a fantastic detail painter, which I totally agree with. He says put him under the vice and extract every piece of information out of him how he does that. So I suppose that's rather broad, and we could make a whole
Yeah.
discussion just on how you do detail parts. But okay, so we'll start with maybe the beginner. What's a good place to start?
If I was going to just give the quick rundown of how to do a detail part from someone who's never done one before, I would first just tell them, you take your hobby knife and a little bit of 220 grit sandpaper, clean it up, get all the little sprues and the mess that comes with the castings off. Just because once you paint it, those errors show up a lot more. They're a lot more evident once you paint it, and then it's too late to fix them.
Sure.
Once we've done that, I just hit them with black spray paint. I do not care what the detail part is. I hit it with black spray paint.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let that dry, and then I do a couple coats of a dry brush, depending on what it is. So say if it's a crate or a barrel or a wood part, I'll probably dry brush 2 or 3 different colors of a wood tone onto that. And then after that, I'll water down some acrylic paints, like some burnt umber colors and stuff like that, and start to do some washes on details that stick out, like ridges, or if it's a crate in the wood cracks, I'll do a couple washes, let those dry. But it's all about layers and just being patient. I know it's tough with small parts to be patient sometimes, but you gotta, just like our buildings, you gotta just work at it slowly and in layers.
Sure. It's all in the layers. It's like an
And then the
onion,
last
so they say.
thing, this is like the key right here. I think with most detail parts, you can make them really pop by just taking a little bit of white, or a little, if it's a red tank, or you won't want to do it with a acetylene tank, but if you get white or a light gray paint and then you dry brush it on really light, you can't go too light in the beginning. You can always dry brush too much and then you have to screw it all up.
Yeah.
But with dry brushing, it's always better to start lighter. Just go over it with a little bit of light, like white dry brushing, to hit the accents, and you'll really make those details on the detail part pop.
Sure. Good advice.
That's it.
Good advice. Dan Pugach has asked this next one. And this is not where I was quite thought this was going to go with Dan, because he's been very, very, very tame, really. So, of all the kits you have built, which is the one you've had the most fun with?
The most fun kit I've had. I think the most fun. I'm looking over at my bench right now. I mean, at the table right now. I think the most fun build that I've done personally is, excluding my current build, is the Sass and Vinegar Works build.
Sure. Yeah.
That was easily my most fun I've had on a single build.
Yeah. Excellent. Chris Galvin, obviously he's reasonably new to your group, I think. I think that's where I got him from. Who's your favourite modeler? I think I know what you're going to say.
Oh, man.
I think I know what you're going to say here. But
Well, it hands down is George Celios.
sure.
But there's a close second would probably be Howard Zane's hard to beat too. So those two are pretty close in order.
Yeah. All right. Celios. All right. Well, that's the end of the patron questions, and we've been going we're just ticked over an hour now. So I said 45 minutes. So we have
That's fine.
waffled on a little bit more. So at this point in time, I have nothing more. No more questions. So is there anything more you wanted to say, I suppose? So
Yeah, I guess I've just been excited to see. I know you and I have communicated back and forth via Messenger quite a bit, and it's exciting to see that this hobby is taking a little bit of a grip in Australia. It's a cool, it's cool to see it being modeled overseas. And I know you have a little bit different theme with what you're building, but it's still awesome. And I guess I was just asking if I had to ask anyone, I would be interested to kind of get the temperature on model railroading as a hobby over in Australia and how it is
Um,
as an American looking over that way. It's interesting to me if it's taking a hold or if it is a large thing.
um, Model railroading in Australia, I suppose the first thing caveat I need to put over the top of this, Australia's got a population of only 25 million people, so we're a tenth of the size,
Hmm.
and less than smaller. So um, it is quite the bricks and mortar stores. There's only a handful of them left in the world. In the country. However, that seems to be quite
That's a pretty common
common right
theme.
across with obviously internet and the like. So I suppose to answer your question, it's for my core little group, it's quite large. Australians are more into, I suppose it's a bit like yourselves, Australian prototype. There's
Hmm.
quite a lot of Australian prototype, which is not too dissimilar, particularly the newer stuff, to the American prototype, just a little bit smaller. We don't run the size of trains that you guys and girls run over there in the prototype land. So, and as I think what you're alluding to, I'm more of a European modeler, and I've been asked
Hmm.
obviously the question of how does American Craftsman kit fit into European modelling, and I think it fits in perfectly, to be quite honest with you. So, because I'm always looking at ways of adapting how I can make my scenes look like they fit in. So, um,
Yeah. I think a lot of the structures, and that's a good point you brought up. I think a lot of the structures, I'm looking at my shelf here. There's two or three buildings that are sitting there that aren't necessarily American, quote unquote, American buildings.
yeah,
It's just a plain red brick building that would fit in pretty much anywhere in UK as well.
yeah.
You
So
know,
yeah, I've
there's a
sorry.
lot of the wood. Basically, I guess my thing to it would be a lot of the wood craftsman structures, though they are kind of New Englandy. Um, you could argue that the old colony cities in the United States that most of a lot or a large part of the United States modelers model after, the inspiration from those buildings came from Europe anyways.
That's right.
So,
That's
uh,
right. So
it's not too much different.
no, and I'm the sort of modeler. I'm not a what they would call a rivet counter. So if I like the look of
Hmm.
something, I'll just either run it or put it in my layout. So I've already thought of ways when I do my harbour scene that's under construction that I'm gonna not. I don't want to copy Jason Jensen, but that sort of feel I want. So being I'm a freelance modeler, I've read a very good article a number of years ago that talks about okay, so in a prototype world, if you follow the prototype, you've got history that tells you the story and helps you guide and build. Obviously, with a freelance world, you have to make your own history up, so to speak. So where I'm sort of
You're
going with
creating
that
the
is
story.
you're creating the story. So I'm going through and creating the story documented of how all my towns and areas came about. So they're all named after influential people in my life or family members. So the
Yeah.
harbour, which is it's going to be called Harold Victor Harbour after my grandfather who got me into the hobby. So the backstory to him is he was an American gentleman. He's the harbour master. So it's just natural to think that there's more American orientated. I'm going to have like a sort of the crafts and structures. So I've got a Seaport Model Works lighthouse that I'm going to build, which I've got here. I've got a CCK Nickerson's Landing, so that's going to form part of that. And then obviously the yacht basin or something similar to the one your dad's going to scratch build. That's on the radar as well, and the new one by Jeff, which he's working with Jason. They're quite
Hmm.
large. There's only sketches of this at this point in time, but the next project they're working on. So I think it's going to fit in nicely because that's the backstory to that area, so to speak, and the history to it. So that's how I justify it in my own little world, I suppose. But
Yeah, and it's awesome. We do the same thing. We're kind of create your own story, create your own adventure layout.
yeah,
we're sticking to a pretty strict timeline. 1939
Sure.
to 43 era, but post World War, or mid to end of World War II,
Yeah.
kind of the beginning of the American revitalization after the Great Depression. So we're sticking to a pretty strict time period, but other than that, the story's up for us to make, and I think that's a lot of fun to do it that way because
Yeah, it is.
you can still instill some accuracy in your layout, but then again, if you like something and it's a little bit different, then what the heck, just
That's
throw it
right.
in there. When we
Um,
were up at when we were at George Celios's layout, there were a few things that we saw that were out of time period, and when my dad or someone asked him about it, and he said, "Oh, I didn't even think about that. I just liked it. I just threw it in there." Like
yeah,
that's pretty cool, and it works to the eye, so that's all that matters.
that's right. And obviously got your little screen up here. It's your world, model it the way you want, basically. So that's
Yep,
moving forward. That's a good way
that's
of
what we
looking at
do.
it. So yeah. So I think that's probably a good place to fit, unless you've got anything more you want to ask of me, I suppose.
No, I liked being on. I liked being on the other side of the mic to say this time. It was a lot of fun, a lot
yeah,
less pressure than I thought it would be. So
yeah. Well, it's all on me. Now I'm on this side of the mic and not listening, so I'm trying to run things and get transitions going over, so it's all recording nicely. So, but Brett, I must thank you, bottom of my heart, that what you and your dad are doing for this niche of the hobby and the hobby in general. I've thoroughly enjoyed coming into your group and the group, the wider group, the Craftsman group, and sort of the way
mhm.
that everyone, including yourselves, has sort of opened up their arms and like, here, we'll just help you out the best we can. And obviously the content you're putting out is always quite exciting. Not quite, it's very exciting. I always love getting the notification when you've got a new podcast out. So thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for taking the time out away from your family in this crazy world that we're living in right now, and spending an hour and 9 minutes that we've been yabbering on that
That's fine.
to come and help me out. And obviously the way I want to push this forward is obviously the Timonian's being cancelled, and I want to do my little bit to promote all the great hobbyists that are in this little niche within the niche of craftsman kit
Yeah,
builders and the like. So
it's a great group of guys. You'll not find a single one of them that doesn't want to help you.
yeah,
So it's a great group.
all right, yeah, no, that's awesome. So thanks again, Brett, and we'll have a good day. And it's night over there, it's day over here. I've got to go work in about 3 or 4 hours. So
All right.
we'll see you there. So I'll end the recording there, mate. Make sure you subscribe, click that little bell icon to be notified of upcoming videos. Support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook and Instagram at Model Railroad.